The rain was pouring heavily that evening when Daniel stood in the hallway outside his boss's office, clutching a thin folder in his trembling hands. His shirt was slightly wrinkled after a long day of work, and exhaustion sat deep in his eyes. Inside that folder was a request he had been too afraid to make for months. Behind the polished wooden door sat the woman who controlled his future at the company, and perhaps the fragile life he had built for his daughter. But what happened inside that office that night would leave his boss speechless, and would change both of their lives forever. Before we begin this emotional story, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet strength of ordinary people, please take a moment to like this video, comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to the channel, Kindness Stories. Your support helps us share more stories that remind the world that compassion still exists. Daniel Parker had never imagined life would look like this. Just 4 years earlier, he had been a man with a stable job, a small but comfortable apartment, and a wife who laughed easily and loved their daughter more than anything in the world. But life can change in a single moment. One tragic accident took his wife away and left Daniel standing alone in a hospital hallway with a 3-year-old girl clinging to his leg and crying for the mother who would never come home again. Grief nearly swallowed him whole. For weeks he barely slept, barely ate, barely spoke. But every time he looked at his daughter Lily's small face, with those same gentle eyes her mother once had, he forced himself to stand up again. She needed him. And that became the only reason he kept moving forward. Life as a single father was harder than Daniel had ever imagined. Every morning started before sunrise. He would quietly prepare Lily's breakfast, braid her tiny golden hair the best he could, pack her school bag, and walk her to daycare before rushing to work. Evenings were filled with homework, simple dinners, laundry, and bedtime stories that often ended with Lily falling asleep on his shoulder while he silently wiped away tears she could not see. Money was always tight. Daniel worked as a maintenance supervisor in a large corporate building. The job wasn't glamorous, but it paid enough to survive. Still, rent kept rising, groceries kept getting more expensive, and daycare fees swallowed half his salary. Every month felt like a battle to keep the lights on. Eventually, Daniel had no choice but to move into a tiny apartment on the outskirts of the city. It had 2 small rooms, one for Lily and one for him. The building was old, the paint peeled from the walls, and the hallway lights flickered at night. But to Daniel, it was still a safe place where his daughter could sleep peacefully. He always made sure Lily had the better room. Her walls were covered with colorful drawings she made at school. A small stuffed rabbit sat on her bed every night. Daniel had even hung tiny glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling so she wouldn't be afraid of the dark. Meanwhile, Daniel slept on a thin mattress in the second room with nothing but a small lamp and a stack of unpaid bills on a table beside him. He never complained. Because Lily would often run into his room in the morning, jump onto the mattress, and wrap her tiny arms around his neck while whispering, "Good morning, Daddy." And in that moment, every struggle felt worth it. But 1 month changed everything. The building Daniel worked in was undergoing renovations, and several departments were being reorganized. Rumors spread that layoffs might happen. Daniel had already seen 2 coworkers lose their jobs. Fear started creeping into his thoughts. Losing his job wouldn't just mean hardship, it would mean losing the life he had managed to protect for Lily. One afternoon, the company's CEO, Victoria Carter, visited the building for a routine inspection. She was known as a